For decades, there's been this simple formula for economic success. Just invest in R&D, and prosperity is sure to follow. But what if that so-called engine of growth is actually sputtering out? Today, we're going to dig into some really fascinating research that shows for a lot of countries, the problem isn't a lack of fuel, it's something else entirely.
So the big idea, which comes from what economists call new growth theory, is actually pretty powerful. It basically says that the real secret to long-term sustainable growth isn't just about having more stuff, it's about creating new knowledge. R&D, innovation, science, these are supposed to be the absolute cornerstones of a modern economy. It's the promise that's been sold to nations all over the world.
But here's the thing. When researchers took a close look at a whole group of developing countries, they found something that just didn't add up. The key they were handed to unlock all that prosperity, well, it didn't seem to fit the lock at all.
And this brings us to a really crucial study by Fayez and Bartha. They dove into the data from 32 lower middle-income countries, and they were testing a very simple question. Does pouring money into R&D actually lead to real economic growth?
And at first, it looked like the answer was a clear yes. The data showed a really solid, statistically significant link between R&D efforts and actually producing innovation. So for every unit of R&D activity, innovation went up by about 0.34 units. The first part of the machine works perfectly. Countries invest in science, they invest in research, and sure enough, they generate new ideas and patents. The fuel is definitely getting into the engine.
Right, so creating innovation is step one. But the second step, and honestly the most important one, is turning that innovation into actual measurable economic growth. Jobs, higher incomes, a better standard of living for people. And this, right here, is where the researchers found the whole chain just breaks.
The study found absolutely no significant statistical connection between how innovative a country was and its economic growth. Let me say that again, because it's kind of shocking. For these 32 nations, creating more innovations did not lead to more growth. The engine was revving like crazy, but the car was basically going nowhere. So, what on earth is happening?
This is the central mystery we've got to solve. If R&D is successfully creating innovation, but that innovation isn't creating any growth, there has to be a missing piece to the puzzle. The problem isn't the fuel. It's got to be something in the engine itself.
And the answer, according to all this research, lies in this idea of an R&D ecosystem. See, it's not enough to just have one good part. For an economy to really move forward and get traction, you need a whole system of interconnected parts all working together in perfect harmony.
Okay, so this is the formal academic model of that ecosystem. And yeah, it looks a little complicated. You can see how all these high-level institutions influence research and finance and labor, and how those are supposed to lead to growth. So, to make this way simpler, let's just think of it like a high-performance car engine.
First, you need your R&D. This is the fuel. It's the raw, explosive power that comes from new ideas, scientific discoveries, and all those tech breakthroughs. Without it, you're obviously not going anywhere. This is the part that so many countries are focused on.
But fuel is totally useless if you can't get that power to the wheels, right? Well, that's the job of the capital markets. Think of this as the car's transmission. It takes all the financial resources, everything from venture capital to basic loans for small businesses, and channels that power where it can actually create motion and drive new companies forward. Next, you obviously need a driver, and that's your human capital. An educated, technically skilled workforce. That's the person in the driver's seat. They have the training, the digital skills, to actually handle the powerful machinery of a modern economy, to adapt all the new technologies, and to steer the whole thing down the path to growth. And finally, none of this works without good institutions. These are the rules of the road. We're talking about things like a stable government, clear regulations, and, crucially, the protection of property rights. They create a predictable, safe environment where the driver can confidently hit the gas without worrying about the road suddenly collapsing underneath them. So how do we know this isn't all just a nice analogy? Well, the researchers backed it all up with a ton of data, measuring each part of this engine using comprehensive info from the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Index.
And this slide gives us a look under the hood. You can see the specific metrics they used. For R&D, they looked at way more than just spending. They measured scientific publications and how prominent the research institutions were. For capital markets, they looked at critical stuff like how much venture capital was available and financing for small and medium-sized businesses. And for human capital, they tracked things like years of schooling and the quality of vocational training. This is a really detailed diagnostic of the entire system.
And what did that diagnostic reveal?
a system that is fundamentally out of sync. A lot of these developing nations are pouring tons of fuel, that's the R&D investment, into the tank, but the transmission is clunky and can't get power to the wheels. Or maybe the driver just isn't skilled enough yet to handle the machine. The parts just aren't working together, and the result is a stalled engine. So what's the real-world consequence when this powerful engine of innovation just can't get into gear? Well, it leads to one of the most frustrating and persistent problems in all of development economics.
It's called the middle income trap. This is when a country grows really fast at first, but then its growth just flatlines. It gets stuck, unable to make that final crucial leap to becoming a fully developed, high-income economy. The study's findings strongly suggest that a weak R&D ecosystem, one that can't turn innovation into growth, is a huge reason why so many countries fall into this trap.
So what's the way out of this thing? The World Bank has a model for development that puts this whole puzzle into a really clear perspective. And it suggests that a lot of countries might be trying to run before they've even learned to walk.
It's called the 3I model. So step 1 is investment. Your initial growth comes from the basics, accumulating capital and labor. Step 2 is infusion. Now, growth is driven by getting really good at absorbing and adapting existing technologies from all over the world. Only after a country masters that does it move to step 3, innovation, where creating brand new tech from your own R&D becomes the main driver. The problem is, many countries get stuck because they try to jump right to step 3 before building the ecosystem, the strong driver, and the smooth transmission that they need to even master step 2.
And this really brings us to the most important takeaway. For many developing nations, the challenge isn't some shortage of great ideas. The real bottleneck is building the robust economic machinery, the strong capital markets, the skilled human capital, the stable institutions that can take those brilliant ideas and actually turn them into widespread prosperity.
So we're left with this final, really critical question. It kind of reframes the entire debate about development, doesn't it? Maybe the path to prosperity isn't about waiting for a eureka moment in a lab, but about the slow, difficult, patient work of building an entire ecosystem that can put knowledge, wherever it comes from, to work for everyone.